Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88-85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits. And remember when he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with two other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But who the hell's going? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. We've got about 20 hours of fresh programming coming up this week, and we always start with Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
Victory Monday. I'm doing good.
I got to tell you, Greg, that hat that you're wearing, that is really special. Tell us about it.
That came, well, it's a takeoff of the 18 hat. I should watch what I'm saying. People are watching this thing. My son-in-law made it. And shout out to So Buffalo Design. He's in Buffalo, and he sent it to me. And got it last week. I love it. It's a great hat.
It's beautiful. And they've got a Facebook page, so people should run over there and take a look at some of the stuff.
It's supposed to be by design, but I think he didn't put the period there, so it comes out So Buffalo by Design.
Ah, okay.
Because they live in South Buffalo. And South Buffalo's got like its own community, if you are from Buffalo. So it's a great little area of the city.
It's beautiful. So you spent some time up there, and your brother-in-law does this for a living, right? He prints
son-in-law, not brother-in-law.
I'm sorry.
Well, he does a lot of things for a living. He's an entrepreneur.
Cool.
But this is he's got a taxi cab company.
Whoa, really?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what he does. He buys his taxi cab company. Not a lot of people, they use Uber now. So he finds out that, wait a minute, I can make some money doing Medicare visits and stuff. So he picks up elderly people. He goes to the drugstores, gets medicines, brings them. It's all covered by Medicare. The government's paying him for it.
Wow, nice. Nice work.
And he does the embroidery business. He had a lighting business that he sold for a fortune. Now he's trying to find something else to buy. That's what he does. I mean, he just fiddles around with stuff and makes money.
Ask him if he wants to buy the bar room. All right.
Can we make money?
That's the problem. Maybe he can help us make some money. All right. It is Victory Monday, and so we've got a lot of really positive things to talk about and probably some negative things.
No, it's not loud. I tweeted it out yesterday afternoon.
Oh, okay. We won't talk about anything.
No, there's some sloppy penalties.
Yeah.
That hurt some drives. A lot of free snap penalties, like probably 4 or 5. One by Komet was key because it turned a third and short into a third and long. Yeah. You had there was one penalty. It wasn't a pre-snap penalty. It was they don't call it lining up in the backfield, but Darnell Walker was hit for 5 yards on a play that had made Caleb threw about a 12-yard check down pass to Roshan Johnson, but he was called for lining up too deep in the backfield. So
Right.
I looked at it like 3 times this morning and said, I don't think so. That one was really, really close.
Yeah, it was. I didn't think he was offsides. I would not have called that. That's for sure.
No, I mean, they're being strict about it.
Mhm.
That first game, that Thursday night game, they called who the hell the Chiefs playing that first game? Baltimore. They called 3 times, like in the first drive, on that. And then the Chiefs, their right tackle does it all the time. He lines up deep and he leaves early, and they never call him.
Yeah.
But they weren't calling the Chiefs on that. They were calling Baltimore.
Mhm.
They got Walker on Sunday. When I looked at it this morning, I said, I don't think so. I think that was a cheap call. But hey, it is what it is. And it hurts some drives. I think Caleb in the first half,
Freeze on me.
it was getting down into the red zone, and Swift wide open on a check down off to the right. In fact, Mark Sanchez, who was doing the analysis, mentioned it too. And he doesn't see Swift, and he ends up taking a sack on the play, where if he hits Swift might have gotten a touchdown out of it. So it's little stuff like that, but that's experience. And as he gets more game experience, and we're seeing it. We're seeing week after week after week after week, he's getting better. And this is what, and the other thing, yesterday, remember, I preached all last week about 8 in the box, sometimes 9 in the box. Well, the Rams came out and tried that.
They sure did.
They didn't stay in it
because
now we won't see it that much anymore.
Yeah.
Because he's figuring out how to beat it.
Right. So I also noticed that Caleb was under center for a lot more plays, probably 3 times the amount that he has in any one of the first 3 games. How much do you think that helped the run game?
That's hard to say, because there's a lot of run games in the league that are very successful out of the gun. So it helped the short yard. I mean, he was under center in that goal line play, but they also put a center at fullback, as the lead blocker, and he knocked the dog shit out of somebody on that play. But they made some changes or adjustments, but however you want to call it, and they worked out. So I was listening to a couple of the pregame shows, and they're saying how they're worried that some of this stuff got public, and I know why. It was maybe it needed public. Maybe some guys needed to be faced with that publicly knowing they were making mistakes. People can take shots at Waldron all they want, but one thing the guy did, and I think he earned a lot of respect from the players, he owned up to everything. Goes into a meeting, puts down on the wall, here's all the mistakes that I know I made. And to me, that's impressive. That's telling the players that you can trust what I'm saying, because I'm going to be held accountable to what I do. But at the same time, the players got to be held accountable. And I think that's why you saw some of that stuff become public during the week.
So this players meeting with Shane Waldron, where he admitted his mistakes, and Mercedes Lewis told, I think it was Brad Biggs, that one of the things he was told, Shane Waldron was told, was you need to speak up more and hold players accountable. So the interpretation of that is that perhaps Shane was not, saying you need to block better on this play, you need to do this and so forth, and that he was letting some things go.
Well, they're nice about it, because I saw the one clip, and I think it was in a podcast. He goes, "We're men, we can take hard coaching." and it's basically they were saying some players need to be MF'd a little bit in practice,
Right.
and getting after it, and sometimes coach. It used to be all the time. I mean, I can't even count that high how many times I was yelled at in practice. And that's the way you used to get coached day after day after day after day. I mean, I could tell you stories about going to Michigan when Schembechler was there. And, he was a crazy man at practice yelling at people. But people said, no, you can't coach players that way. Why can't you?
Mm-hmm.
You coach a player. Belichick did. He had success. Parcells did. You coach players to get them to play to their ability, and you find out how you got to do it with each particular player. The one fallacy in coaching is that you got to treat every player alike. That is so false. You find out how each player ticks. Some player needs to be yelled at, get his ass kicked a little bit. Another guy, you got to put your arm around him and love him. You find out what works with each player, and you treat them accordingly.
Yeah, we've got some interesting questions already coming in, Greg. I'd love for you to address this one. Gypsy Mike, who is from his past posts on our show here, he's made it pretty clear he's not a Caleb Williams fan. He says they dumbed down the play calling to keep Caleb from losing the game. Defense won us another game. You want to respond to that?
I don't get what he said. They dumbed down. They didn't do anything. He played better. What Caleb did was take what was given. He showed. I don't know. First of all, I don't agree with one thing he said there. Mm-hmm. And Caleb showed his how he's starting to mature in the game, and that in the first 3 games he wasn't trying to hit the check down. He was going for the big play or whatever, and he'd miss him, or he threw an interception or whatever. Well, yesterday he took the check down at least 5 times. Almost all of them got a first down. Obviously, he completed them, and he didn't turn the ball over. And that's the most important thing. I don't care who the player is. I don't care if it's Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning or whatever. If there's a check down there, they're going to take it because it's an easy 5 or 6 yards. You got to turn on your mic there, buddy.
It would help. If you listen to Tom Brady, he's always encouraging quarterbacks to take the check down. I mean, even one-on-one, he was on a show with Josh Allen. And he basically told Josh, you're not going to win in this league. You're not winning your Super Bowl until you learn to take what the defense is giving you. You're trying to be too much of a hero and going for the – and Allen was practically kind of rolling his eyes at that. But you got to take it from the guy who's won 7 Super Bowls. That's a big part of how you win in today's NFL.
Well, it's funny because I watch every Buffalo game. Now, yesterday they got their asses kicked in Baltimore. But for the most part, in every game, I've never seen Josh check down like he has this year. Now he's got a whole new group of receivers. Really got one leftover guy, and Khalil Shakur is the slot receiver, is the only leftover. Everybody else is new. And he's just learned not to always go for the big play. And he doesn't, and because they're all new and most of them are young, nobody has a big ego yet. And they took the big ego guy out of their locker room, and it made a big difference. And that was Stephon Diggs. He became a cancer in the locker room. So they might not ever say it publicly. I mean, Allen kind of said it last week, and then he backtracked from it because it was obvious what he said. But you go to yesterday's game then with the Bears, and Cole Kmet said nobody's got an ego here, and that's important. And you want to win games. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Look, we knew there was going to be struggling. We kept saying it. The fan, and I'm not trying to downgrade the fans, but they got to understand what's going on. And rookies take a long time to learn how to play. And, the people with experience say, hey, throw out what Stroud did last year. That was the anomaly. Most rookies suck when they're in their first year. Most of them lose.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, Bears are sitting at 2-2. And what did we say 4 weeks ago after 4 games? You wanted to be 2-2. That's what they are.
Travis in our chat said that a lot of people are forgetting that C.J. Stroud needed 5, 6, 7 games to really get into the groove and to play at the high level that he is playing at since then and now. And
first 3 games, they were 1-2, same as the Bears.
That's right.
They lost their first 2.
Mm-hmm.
They won their third. We won the first one, lost the second 2. But after 4 games, they were 2-2, and the Bears were 2-2. And you can go back to Andrew Luck, who was the last quarterback to get to the playoffs. First round rookie to get to the playoffs.
Right.
He lost his first 2, and then was 2-2 after 4 games. So he's sitting right in the same spot. Now everybody can say, "Oh, Daniels is doing this and Daniels is doing that." Daniels is playing a college offense right now, and they haven't played anybody worth a damn yet.
Mm-hmm. So Laz says, obviously, Jalen Daniels it's Jaden, right? Jaden Daniels is having more success than Caleb. Why? Kingsbury versus Waldron is my opinion.
What they're doing is playing Kingsbury's college. What do you call it? It's the college spread, air raid offense, and it's basically a half read offense, and he's having success for him. But here's what happens when you do that in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get now you got 3 to 4 weeks of tape on that, and they're going to play a good defense, and they're going to shut it down. I mean, look, Bo Nix threw for 300 yards last week?
Right.
See what he threw for yesterday?
Yeah.
60.
Right.
It happens. It happens all the time. I remember, Chip Kelly's first year in Philly had that same type of offense in Philly, and nobody saw it for a while before in the NFL. This is so innovative. Look what he's doing. Yeah, it worked for half a season, and then it got shut down, and then he got run out of town.
Yeah. You're absolutely right of the type of offense that Kingsbury is running for Daniels. A big part, if you look at the stats in terms of passing yards, Caleb and Daniels are virtually even. The big disparity is in the run game. Daniels has run for 88 yards on 16 carries, 44 yards on 10 carries. 39 yards on 12 carries. He's actually reducing the amount of carries, but in order to get acclimated to the league, having Daniels run the ball was a great big part of helping him get adjusted to the NFL, which is now Caleb is not a running quarterback, but he could use that skill.
I debate that only because he can be. He doesn't want to be.
Yes, exactly.
I've heard an interview that said, I don't want to run. And he's left yards in this season, in 4 games. There's yards he's left on the field. Hell, he could that first run he had where they did that RPO when he ran to the left and he slid, he could have got 5 more yards if he didn't slide. Now, okay, is sliding the right thing to do? Maybe, because you don't want to you don't want him to get hurt or whatever, but it's not like he's a little guy. He's a 220-pound guy that's really built well. So get those. That's my opinion. There's nothing wrong with sliding, but slide when you have to, not too early.
Right. I agree with that. I mean, he's one of the things that concerns me about the coaching staff is that they are so adamant about not turning the ball over, not getting hurt and so forth. It can sometimes, not scare, that's not the right word, but it's the only one I can think of right now. It can scare a quarterback from doing great things. Have you ever seen that before, where it's such a cautious approach they take with the quarterback? Don't throw the interception, always protect the ball and so forth. They're afraid to throw it into a tight window. They're afraid to run for the extra yard. You
Well,
ever
that
seen
touchdown pass to DJ was a tight window.
that? Talk about that.
And actually, the pass to Komet over the middle, that was a tight window throw.
Yeah, it was. So
so he's not afraid to do it, but yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. You know, that it's a proven theory with the turnovers, and in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, the team that wins the turnover battle wins the game. And the Bears did not turn the ball over yesterday. They turned the ball over 2 or 3 times each of the last 2 games. There was 4 interceptions in those games. So, and they won the turnover battle in a game against Tennessee. So this defense creates turnovers. They're going to get the ball. So now it's just a matter of making sure the offense doesn't turn the ball over or turn it over as little as possible. They're going to happen. There's going to be a fumble. There's going to be an interception. What you don't really want is the stupid fumble or the stupid interception.
Yeah, indeed.
That can be, you know, basically if you're playing smart, is not going to happen.
Well, let's talk about the offensive line, because that really does seem to be the crux of turnovers. They allow too much pressure. Caleb gets hurried, makes a bad throw, interception. They don't open up holes. Evaluate the offensive line, because to me it seemed, ironically, it seemed like the offensive line played better after Tevin Jenkins left the game with a rib injury.
You stole the line right from me.
Sorry.
No, that you're right. And it was really weird because it's like the whole performance of the line changed when Tevin went out.
Yeah, weird.
And I was gonna, because I know Pat Manley reviews the tape, and I was gonna send Pat a text, and I just haven't had time because I didn't watch. You know, I've been up since 4:30 because I had to do work for the agents that I do. I did 4 reports, college guys, and then I watched our game, but I watched our game quickly, and then, you know, came right to this. So I've been going since probably about 10 to 5 is when I started. So I need a nap is what I need. But,
you and I both.
But did you get all your honeydews done, by the way? You know, Mama came home last week, and you had work to do.
So what's going on? I did not. You know I didn't. So what is going on with this offensive line? Could this offensive line be better with Matt Pryor in there and Nate Davis? I don't think. Well, Pryor's not playing bad. Braxton is not playing up to the level he should be playing in his 3rd year. And he's a guy that I always stand up for, and he's got the traits to be a very good player. I think, you know, some of it might be mental. I don't know did you read Biggs's 10 questions or 10 comments yet? I got through most of it just before the show.
He had a big part about it, and I agree with him 100%. Don't be surprised if you got 2 new guards playing for the Chicago Bears next year, and that, you know, Davis won't be back and they won't extend Tevin. And I think after Tevin went out, the line played better, and the fact that he went out, you know, he's been a durability problem since the day he got here. I just can't see them extending him unless it's really, really, really team-friendly deal.
Right.
And right now, the way he's playing, he's not playing good this year. He hasn't. I don't think he's had a good game yet this season. So, you know, who's going to give money on the market? Now, maybe you do a 2-year extension at, you know, the money you're giving, some less money than you gave Nate Davis. Well, you know, then you might say, okay, we'll keep him. And then I still think they're going to draft 2 offensive linemen because it's just good business to do that. That's how you win football games. Build your offensive and defensive lines.
Mm-hmm.
So, and speaking of defensive lines, I want to say, so I don't forget, that 6th round they gave up for Taylor was a steal.
Yes, indeed. Darrell Taylor.
If he was playing full time, he'd easily be a double-digit sack guy. He's probably going to finish with 8, which is playing part-time. That's in rotation. That's perfect. But he's only got 2.5 sacks right now. But he is putting pressure on the quarterback on a consistent basis. And he smacked Stafford right in the mouth on that last play. And, I tweeted out during the game, I said, you keep hitting him in the mouth and he's going to give the game to you.
Yeah.
I've watched this guy since he was in his last year at Georgia. I have never been a fan. I don't think he's tough. He folds when he gets hit. And he got hit a bunch yesterday.
Yeah. You've said that for years. It's unbelievable.
I'm never going to change my mind. His first year with LA, he played good. They had a good supporting cast around him. The offensive line was outstanding. But since then, there's a lot of talk that McVay was done with him last year, but they got nobody else. They got to stay with him.
Right. And it's funny, too, because in the week leading up to the game, McVay brought up that Thursday night game where the Bears defense just demolished Jared Goff and said that really was one of the most memorable games in his life because it really changed the season for them, meaning that other defenses then looked at how Vic Fangio ran the defense against them that night, and it basically blew up their playoff chances. They ended up being eliminated from the playoffs.
Now what's funny, now, listen to what you just said, and what's key. What Vic Fangio did, other teams then started doing to stop. That's go back to what Tennessee did to stop the Bears.
Yeah.
Every team has done it since.
Right.
Until they prove they can beat it. And they started last week in the second half. They started to prove they could beat it, and then they picked up on it again. Still a little bit of a slow start. Takes a little while to get the tires warm, but once they get going, they're pretty good.
Yeah. By the way, getting back to the offensive line, I agree with my cigar chomping friend here, Laz. I do think that maybe Darnell Wright could possibly be the only returning starter at the offensive line next season, that we could see a new center, 2 guards, and a left tackle. Your thoughts?
Well, I think the center's still here. They're going to let Ryan Bates prove he can't play before they move on. And he's got 1 more year on his contract after this. He's got 1 more week on IR before he can come off. So that's this week's game against Carolina. Then he can come off. I disagree. I still think there's too much talent to walk away. I mean, you're not going to play 3 or 4 rookies on the offensive line. That isn't going to happen.
No.
You can get away with 2. You'd prefer to do 1. It's, if you're going to go out and buy somebody, you got to spend your money wisely. And you got to, because we've seen how at some of these positions, the money has skyrocketed. And there's you got so many people that are going to be key people up for contract extensions that the best way to do it, it's like I said it, last spring, you need to draft a good defensive end just for salary cap purposes. Because if he becomes a player, you got him on the rookie contract. Well, they did, and he's going to be a good player. I thought they'd take one earlier and Booker, but then they got Taylor. Taylor's not making. Taylor's making $3 million, but he's in the last year of his contract, so you got to pay him next year.
Yeah, or somebody else to play that position. All Okay, penalties by the offensive line. It's been brought up a few times in the chat. What is going on? Let me see if I can find the exact one that mentioned penalties. I can't, but what is going on with penalties? Is that the result of players? Is it the cadence? Because I keep hearing the cadence come up a lot. Is there something that the quarterback could be doing wrong, or what potentially is the issue that there are so many penalties on the offensive line?
My view has always been and will always be pre-snap penalties are strictly a matter of concentration.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the player who gets the penalty. Frickin' listen to what when you're out there and pay attention.
Yeah.
And so if you move early, it's on you. There are a few of those. The one, say, Wright was caught with illegal formation. He said he was a little bit too deep in the backfield. I did not agree with that particular penalty, but it was called. So, I mean, you got to be – it's a point of emphasis this year. So you got to make sure you're up a little bit closer. It used to be the offensive line lined up like a mini V, and you can't do that now. They're going to call it unless you're Kansas City, and they let Kansas City get away with it because they don't want to see Mahomes get hurt. But all told, teams have still been blitzing a lot, and they're going to do that until he figures out how to the things. They're doing a lot of things against the Bears because there's a rookie quarterback.
Right.
And he's got to figure out how to beat them. And until he does, they're just going to keep coming. Stack or crowd the line of scrimmage against the run, blitz on passing downs, create the pressure. It makes the line look like shit. When you look at the stat line, sometimes it's not always the line, and I'm not sticking up for him because there's guys that got beat. There's one time the Pryor got beat pretty bad.
Yeah.
End up that sack didn't count. There was 2 sacks in a row in the first half. One, there was or both times Caleb held onto the ball too long that I thought were both strictly on Caleb.
Yes.
And sometimes he needs to get a little bit, maybe go back another yard or so when his drop. That he's not quite deep enough, and that center pass rush closes in on him too quickly. So. But they'll get fixed. Again, that's experience. Hey, the last guy who wants to get hit in the mouth is him. He's the quarterback, right? So he's gonna learn how to do it. He's gonna see everybody's throwing stuff at him. He's gonna see it. Pretty soon it's gonna get to a point where, I've seen that, and he's gonna recognize it. He's gonna recognize it pre-snap.
Yeah, indeed. Cole Kmet made a couple of penalties yesterday.
The one was stupid.
Yeah. Oh my.
That was just a bad. That was concentration.
Yeah, man. I wish there was like a concentration pill people could take. Earlier, even I think before we started, or right when we started, OKC Bear Boy says, "Greg, can you take a minute to detail what the responsibilities of the run game coordinator are above being the O-line coach?" It is interesting that
he puts together basically the offensive coordinator has the final say, but when you're breaking down, so you've got your assistants, like basically your college GA type guys, but there are quality control and assistants. They're working a week ahead on the tape. And then you get in today, they start game planning for Sunday against Carolina. So the run game coordinator is looking at the defensive front of Carolina and trying to figure out what runs are going to work the best, assuming Carolina runs the same type of scheme. Now, what I think you got to do is think, okay, everybody else has been putting 7, 8 in the box. Carolina is going to put 7 or 8 in the box because that's what's been holding up the run game. So, but, to get back to the question, that's what the run game coordinator does. The pass game coordinator does the same thing with the passing game. The offensive coordinator oversees the whole thing. Basically, what you're doing by having those 2 extra coordinators, and everybody's doing it now, is really trying to spread out the work a little bit to be it more efficient, and you get some people with a little bit different ideas. It isn't strictly coming from one guy, it's coming from 3.
Mhm.
So does that make sense how I explained that?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm embedding that the question is born out of the fact that, when you marry a offensive coordinator with a offensive line coach who was already here, and basically, I mean, I know Shane probably approves of Chris Morgan, but they haven't worked together before, and so there's going to be a period of time where they gotta work through certain issues, and communication has come up a lot. And so maybe the communication wasn't as robust as it should be. If you've got the run game coordinator and the offensive coordinator not communicating well, perhaps that's led to some of the problems with the offensive line in the run game.
Well, I can bring up. I can't speak for what the relationship is between Waldron and Simo, because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But we can go back to when Nagy was here and he brought in Harry Heastan to coach the line. And it was Harry's second stint here.
Yep.
Now, I've worked with Harry, and I know what kind of coach he is. And to a man, everybody who's played for him thinks he's the best coach I ever played for, offensive line coach. But Nagy and Harry weren't on the same page.
Yeah.
And and Harry was the run game coordinator. And so how Harry wanted to run the run game and how Nagy wanted to handle the run game were 2 different ways. And so who had to go?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one was the head coach and the other guy was just an assistant. So the assistant went, and it didn't get any better with the guy who replaced him, which was Juan Castillo. Juan Castillo is a good coach, but you got to be, well, number one, you got to have players, but number 2, you got to be playing the type of offensive line play that everybody's got to be in cahoots or in agreement on how you're going to run handle your run game. Is going to be more of a power game? Is it going to be outside zone, inside zone, a combination of the 2 or whatever? And that's the important thing, because a lot of it has to do with the type of player, athletically, size-wise, and everything else that you're drafting or you're signing as a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
No, so okay, let's use Pryor. Pryor is not the type of Pryor is good because he's got a lot of experience. He started a lot of games in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
But from an athletic standpoint, he's not a guy you're going to draft.
Right.
With this club playing an outside or wide zone scheme, you want athletic linemen.
Yeah, he's not athletic like a Braxton Jones is. That's for sure.
Right. And Darnell's very athletic.
He is. He can move for a big man.
Tevin's very athletic.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Let me get to some other questions here. We've got a lot of great questions here. Let's see what Twin's saying. Braxton Jones still seems to struggle with the bull rush. Do we see him getting benched next? Maybe for rookie Amagaji?
No.
You don't think it's going to happen, huh?
No. I think Amagaji is going to get a chance to play. I think it's going to be inside.
Really? Now,
I've been thinking that all along, because you want your best, right?
Right.
And I don't care, does Braxton have a bad play here and there? Yes. But his overall play is pretty good, and his run blocking is very good, and his space blocking is very good. So, and Amagaji is 6'5.5", 6'6", 325 pounds, and strong. He's working at the 2 tackles now. He might even be working at guard for all we know. But I think that we come next year, like Big D said, there are probably going to be 2 new guards. Wouldn't shock me if he's one of them.
Okay.
be it the left side. I don't know if it's going to be the left side or the right side. And he has experience at guard. He played guard for 1 year at Yale.
Now, Matt Eberflus did say, I think on his Friday press conference, because he was asked, how is Amagaje looking? He says he's looking fine. He's getting better. We're training him on both sides, left and right. I took that to mean that they were training him to be the swing tackle, basically take Larry Borum's place.
But I wouldn't be. It's not that hard. It's hard for a guard to move out to tackle because you're more on an island. It's not as hard for a tackle to move inside the guard.
Okay.
Okay. And actually, I mean, Tevin did it fairly quickly. There's a lot of guards in the NFL that were tackles in college. But if you look at the body type of Amagaji and who they got to play, Amagaji's got a big ass.
He sure does.
Yes. So, he's going to be able to anchor with that. Your power is that's where your power comes from. Okay. Yeah. And so, generally speaking, in the NFL, your defensive tackles are the biggest people on the field.
Yes.
Not on the Bears team because of the style of defense, but it's like Baltimore last night. They got some big freaking behemoths playing inside. Well, a guy like Amagaji is a big guy who is athletic. And so to me, to do, unless they totally change the scheme, that's a perfect guy. But that's my thought. And whether it happens this year, they get any more injuries, they may have to do it this year. But I think it's more of getting them ready for at the end of the season, we're going to make our plans for next year. Right. We're not bringing back Tevin. We're not bringing back Davis. And they're going to tell him right away, you're moving into left guard or whatever. And so he's going to have that whole off season to work on it.
Yeah. A lot of people have talked about Braxton maybe moving inside. And can a guy who has difficulty against bull rushers play inside?
I think he's gotten a lot better than he was. I mean, sometimes he does get a little tall. But to answer your question, I think he's a tackle. I don't think he's a guard. And just for that, because he's not as big in the lower body. And, he's got a good sized butt, but he doesn't have that big bubble like Amagaji has or like Tevin has. And so I think that he's a little bit, for lack of a better term, narrow to play inside. So I keep him outside myself.
Okay. Sam says Braxton has enough strength. He just needs to play that bull rush with better technique. You agree with that?
Well, I haven't looked at the coach's tape from, the all 22 from yesterday. I rewatched the game, and part of anchoring, it's not just lower body strength and power, but it's bending your knees. Mm-hmm. So I remember, sitting at practice, even back in the Giants, when we're doing one-on-ones, offensive line against defensive line, and Parcells was always over there. And when that drill goes on, I'm always there, for my entire career, because I think it's the best drill in practice. But Parcells was always yelling at the offensive lineman, as soon as he engages the guy, sit, meaning just get your hips down, bend your knees more. And right away, that gives you more power to absorb the on-charging guy, your on-charging opponent.
Yeah, it's like almost like a spring, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like a spring, but your power base comes from your hips, your quads, your ass. That's your power. People the 38 bench press. So what? That's not stopping you handling a bull rush. It's what you got downstairs. Turn on your mic.
Scottish Bear says Amagaji's arms may be too long for guard. You've talked about that before, haven't you? Can your arms
There's
be
one
too
guard
long?
we had. There's one guard we had. I can't remember his name. Signed him as a free agent, and he had 36-inch arms, and he wasn't quick enough with his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's technically speaking, you could say they're too long, but do you think Braxton's got 35 and a half inch, 36-inch arms too?
Yeah.
He's got tree limbs. Darnell's arms are like 33 and 3/4. So, but it's really how quick you get your hands up. You come out of the stands, get your hands up right away and punch.
Don't have them out here.
And you're going to be fine. If you're out here and you're slow, it's know what it gets down to? It gets down to coaching and really working on technique. So you're a lot of these guys are in a 2-point stance. Most of your interior guys stay in a 3-point. But you still, when you come out of that stance, it's, you got, say it's a left guard, you got your left hand down. And as soon as you're coming up, boom, you got your hands up right here, at chest level and ready to punch right away, because you got to win the rep. When you let that guy into your chest, it's all over.
Good stuff. I love good offensive line instruction. We talked in the beginning of the show in our open about why it's hard to evaluate good quarterbacks, and you say that there aren't many good quarterback evaluators. We need more. Would you say the same thing about offensive line coaching and even head coaching? It seems like there is a dearth of good head coaches in the National Football League. Maybe I'm romanticizing the past of the 60s, 70s, and 80s when I grew up watching football, and you had Chuck Noll and Ditka and Bill Walsh and so forth.
What's funny about that,
What?
Aldo, is how big the staffs were then?
They were small.
About a third as big as they are now.
Do you think we have too many coaches? Somebody asked that question.
Everybody has a gazillion coaches, and they're paying them a shitload of money. I'm with the Giants. We had, and everybody in the league was the same way. You had on offense a offensive coordinator, a quarterback coach, a wide receiver coach, a tight end coach, an offensive line coach, running back coach. That's it. Defensive line, you had a defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, linebacker coach, secondary coach. That's it. And maybe one quality control for both. And that was your staff.
Yeah.
And now you got 2 line coaches, 2 receiver coaches. Bears got 3 quarterback coaches. If you want to, really, they got a quarterback coach. They got the passing coordinator and passing game coordinator in Brown, and they got Waldron. All 3 of them are quarterback coaches.
That could be a problem.
Well, somebody got to be the boss.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You need clearly defined responsibilities when you have a staff that big, but sometimes smaller is better. That's what I tell my wife anyway. All right.
I'm not touching that
one. Please don't.
And you're not even Irish.
Maddie says, Gabes, how huge was field position for the Bears W? The Aussie has a leg. Yeah,
That's why they drafted him. Those 2 fourth-quarter punts. I tweeted out yesterday. Should say posted. Twitter's gone.
Yes.
Those 2 fourth-quarter punts, if he doesn't get special teams player of the week, he's getting robbed.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 punts won the game.
They really did. And apparently, reading Brad Biggs, the Aussie was unhappy with his performance a week ago and really worked hard to display what he can do. And those punts, man, were unbelievable. And I hope, hopefully,
how
now
excited he got too.
Yes. And he did that in college too. After hitting great punts, he would get excited. And that's great to see. And it really helps.
He had
the team.
2 over 60 yards. He averaged 55 or 57 or something like that. I don't know. I don't have the stats in front of me.
And He gave a shout out to his special teams coach Hightower, who has been getting a little bit of flack recently. So it was good to see that Hightower got some praise from the punter.
Well, it's the first kick. Well, let's back up. They took him because not only does he have a strong leg, it's what he can do with the ball.
Exactly.
That very few can do. So the first kick, which is 63 or 64 yards, hits on the 7 or 8 yard line and immediately makes a right turn to the sideline and goes out of bounds. That's a spin that he had on the ball. Most of the time, you're going to see a regular punter that's going to hit on the 8 and roll into the end zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next kick, the one before Stafford's interception to end the game, it's like he hits a real high wedge shot from the President's Cup and sticks that sucker.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And the special teams players love it. Owens, whose wife was at the game yesterday, Simone Biles, Jonathan Owens was talking about how incredible it is what he can do with the ball. It's like nobody knows, how can you kick a ball sideways and have it basically land and stop? It's unbelievable.
I mean, he's probably not going to do it because he doesn't want to give away his secrets.
Right.
But it's obviously, something he does. And from kicking, he learned it from kicking a rugby ball on how to do it. There's other people that got rugby players trying to kick and they can't do what he does. He's got a unique trait to him.
Tooch has stats. Torrey Taylor, 5 punts, 277 yards, 55.4 yard average, 3 inside the 20. It's about as good as it gets. That's pretty.
And the last kick was like 40 yards that he it's the shortest kick that he just drops, and it was like a wedge shot. That sucker just stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. By the way, Velus was a scratch again. You think we'll ever see him again play for the Chicago Bears? Velus Jones?
He's got to prove it. You hear the coaching staff say it time and time again. You want to play, you got to practice that way. So he's got to be perfect in practice. And there's got to be an injury or two also.
Yeah.
Because right now, it's like you're not going to bring him up to be a nice guy.
That's right. We did that already, trading Justin Fields.
He cost the Bears in the opening game 7 points. Real simple.
Very, yeah, and almost a game, indeed.
Oh no, they only ended up getting the field goal out of that, but he gave him up three.
Yeah. All right, we have not talked enough about the defense. Another incredible effort. This defense now in the last it's been 10 games, I believe, since they've allowed over 21 points. They're keeping their opponents down. It's a bend, but don't break defense. I saw a lot of comments on social media. It was driving me nuts. Oh, look at the way they're moving the ball up and down the field. I'm like, they're giving up 15 points, and you guys are complaining that this defense is having a horrible game. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to say that the result is the key? How many points you give up? Yeah, if they're going to take time of possession because they're working the middle of the field and running on the Bears and so forth, that's something that has to be fixed. But eventually, it's points allowed that is the key.
I mean, you could do away with your what's the word I want? Your philosophy of defensive linemen and put a couple elephants in there.
Mm-hmm.
And stop the inside run a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way the defense is designed because they're not fits for it.
Okay. Because
we can go back and I posted it yesterday. I posted it because Eric Derwacker, put something about Gervon Dexter out, and then I quoted his tweet and said, Jerome Carter's getting all the pub.
Mm-hmm.
Gervon Dexter is by far the better player.
Hmm.
And it ain't even close.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since about week 10 last year. Week 10, week 11. Carter got out, and Carter has a big game on national TV after the Philadelphia sucked. And so everybody, jumping on the bandwagon. And, Carter's great, but he doesn't do anything after that, because he's lazy. And that's, we should have drafted Jerome Carter, and then gone with somebody else, and instead of taking Darnell Wright. Well, Dexter's a better football player.
Yeah.
Dexter's got 3 sacks in 4 games. What do you have, 4 all last year?
4, correct. And they were early in the season. So Montez Sweat had an excellent game, a strip sack. And the defensive line, is there anything regarding the defensive line that concerns you, or is it all praise right now?
No, I think they got to tighten up a little bit against the inside run. Part of that's I could say what Parcells used to say. The other guys are on scholarship too now. They're going to make some plays. Okay, so it's a well-coached football team. A Sean McVay team is a well-coached football team. And he might be one of the better play callers in the game. He's going to find stuff that's going to work. Their running back, Kyren Williams from Notre Dame, is a heck of a back. He's not tall, but he's strong. He's only about 5'9", 5'8 and a half, but he's really strong and he's quick. But yeah, I think the interior has got to tighten up a little bit. The only real big guy they got is Billings. I mean, Dexter's 315. Yeah, you could say that's big, but Dexter is so much quicker than he was a year ago. And you saw it when he got his pass rush. He just blew right by the guy. And I think they're doing what they want. And you said it right. They are a bend, but don't break. They don't give up the big play, or very rarely give up the big play. And really, that accomplishment, the points that they have, the average number of points that they've given up over the last 10 games is terrific. What'd you say? There's only one time they've given up, or no times? I thought it was 20. You said 21, whatever. I think they've only given up more than 21 time in the last 20. And that was in the low 20s. It gets down to you score 24 points, you win the game.
That's right. And that is outstanding football in my mind, particularly this day and age. And Tooch had some nice stats here. He says Jervon has 3 sacks in the first 4 games and one of the highest pass rush win percentages in the league for defensive tackles. In comparison, Carter has 0 sacks and just a few pressures.
Right. And they had somebody I saw on X last week, there was a graph of the win percentages of defensive linemen, interior defensive linemen in the league. And both Big Bill and Gervon were, like, Big Bill was 3rd and Gervon was 7th in the league.
How about that? Not bad. Defensive backs all playing good. I think Jaquan Brisker, a lot of people said this was Jaquan Brisker's coming out game. I'm like, really? I've seen him play this well before.
Well, he had some big plays, and he
did. He
could have had 2 interceptions if he hadn't stepped out of bounds. And that wasn't, people were questioning that call. Well, that's a stupid rule. No, that's what the rule is. He only got 1 foot in bounds before he made the interception. Had he had both feet in bounds before he made the interception, in other words, 2 steps, and it would have been a good play. But you got to reestablish yourself. And to reestablish yourself, it means you get both feet in bounds.
Yeah. People are pointing out, well, they played well against the Rams. Those, when I come back and say they only allowed, 18 points. They played well against a team that was missing their top 2 receivers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, right? That's what I said. They were missing their left tackle.
You only can play who you play.
Right. You got to beat.
Okay. I didn't look at the stats. Maybe you can look this up. Colts won again yesterday. How many yards did they give up on the ground?
Gosh, I don't know. A lot, right? Didn't they?
I don't think so.
Oh, they didn't? Okay.
I don't think so.
That was the Steelers-Colts game, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can look it up. But so what's your point with that?
The point you're trying to make is when you got a problem, you fix the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, people were bitching. Remember last week where they're the worst run defense and we couldn't run the ball. And I told you what they were doing. They were playing 8 and 9 in the box.
Right.
Try to run against it. You can't.
Yep. Pittsburgh had 122 yards rushing.
Oh, that's pretty damn good.
55 yards came from Justin Fields.
Yeah. I think they learned how to stop the run.
I think they have. Yes.
Okay. So, and now, the Colts were a shitty team 2 weeks ago, but now they've won 2 in a row. So are they still a shitty team? You got to let things play out. And yes, Flus is right. When you have that comment up there, Flus said they're only a few plays away from being 4-0, and he's right.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bears you could easily say the Bears have beat themselves more than the other team has beat them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Somebody pointed that out in the chat that we could easily be 4-0. Coach T.
To me, this team is right where it should be right now.
Yep. Coach T.
By the way, did you see? I wanted to bring up too. I saw the Bears put it out on their X account when Mercedes Lewis got the game ball and his little speech.
No, I missed that.
Really good, really good. And he talked about last week. So first of all, he's played 272 games at one position. And I just remembered, and it was 18 years ago. I took him and his teammate out to dinner. 18 years ago.
That's wild.
At Fleming's, Maurice Jones-Drew and him, both UCLA guys. There's Lovey, Rob Boris was the tight end coach, Ron Turner, Tim Spencer, myself. We all went to Fleming's, for a nice dinner. And God, Maurice Jones-Drew been out of the league, and he's an analyst on the NFL Network now. And Mercedes Lewis is still hacking away, playing. And, you saw him, he was like stripped down when he gets the game ball. The guy is put together now.
He is. But I got to tell you one quick thing about him. I hear a lot of people say, why don't we put Mercedes Lewis in at guard since we need offensive linemen? He does not have the
pounds.
Right. He does not have the body to do that.
He's 6'6", 255, 260 pounds. He's a tight end. He can pass block. He can run block. But he's not going to take on a 320-pound defensive tackle. He could do it for a play or two.
Exactly.
But he's not going to do it.
He's going to wear it out
40 plays.
All right.
Put it this way. He's going to say, how the hell do you think I played till I was 40?
Exactly.
Because they started laughing. He made fun of his age. I'm 40 and I'm still doing this. It was really, when you got a chance, take a look at it on the Bears account.
I will definitely do that.
And it's long. It's like maybe 3 minutes long.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Coach T says you look good. How's your health, Greg?
Well, the cough's coming back, and I see the doc tomorrow, so
good luck
we'll
with
find out. I think that my lungs have gotten used to the medication. It's time to readjust.
Oh, I haven't heard you cough in a long time.
Well, it's not like before, but it's more than it has been. I went like 3 months totally clean. It was like, oh my God.
Wow.
It was like heaven.
I bet. Let's answer some questions here. Danger T asked, Greg, do you think Caleb is a better prospect than Andrew Luck was? Do you think Caleb will be a top 5 quarterback in the league ever?
Do I think he'd be a top 5 quarterback? Yes. Good question about Andrew Luck. The game was a little bit different then. It's 13 years ago, 2012. No, so 12 years ago. Andrew is bigger, very athletic, but not as shifty as Caleb is. probably equal arm strength.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Luck was very, very smart. I say it was like past tense, like he's dead or something. No, he is very smart. I got to know his dad really well when I was working in the XFL because he was the commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Had some great conversations, and it was really funny because all that, it was during the summer of 2019. We're going to NFL camps, so we're getting ready to play that 2020 season. And so we got this big meeting going on in Houston. It's in the week leading up to the cut down for the 2019 final cut down.
Yep.
And we're going to, making a plan on how we're going to contract players to bring them over to our league that aren't on practice squads and stuff. So, and this is right like a week after Andrew Luck retired, and Oliver wouldn't say a freaking word about it. You couldn't get anything out of him on that.
Wow.
Go back to that. He is, I think they're two different kinds of players.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both very unique in their own right. Caleb is more Mahomes-like. Mahomes only 3/4 of an inch taller than, and they got very similar type builds. I think Caleb's stronger. He's better built. At least he is now. Than Mahomes is. So I don't think they're ever going to be on a level playing field when trying to compare them, because their games are so much different. But I do believe that when it's all said and done and you don't count, you don't weekly go in, oh, Jaden Dallon's better, should have taken him. You don't do that. Let things play out. He plays for a different team. They're doing different things. Okay? They're playing different opponents. And let Caleb grow the way Caleb's going to grow, and I think Bears fans will be happy. I'm just, stuff I was talking about last fall, early this spring, so far has proven not to be accurate, and I'm just happy about that. So I got my 18 hat.
Yeah, I love that. That hat is gorgeous. Let's see what else we got here. We've got interesting question from Surat. If you have the knowledge, Greg, can you talk about how the teams and players get involved in charities like Crucial Catch and other efforts? Is it mandatory for teams and players? And we don't talk enough about the good that they do. What do you know about charitable work that the NFL does?
Well, there is a section in the front office. I can't think of the lady's name now, who her name was Marge, and I can't think of her last name, and I don't know if she's still there, but she was for a long time. But that was her area. And Bears Care comes under that umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the big Bears Care gala at Soldier Field every May. But all the charity stuff goes through that group. So if you need something for charity, like I'll give a perfect example is my wife needed something for a charitable event at her work.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Marge and I got a Brian Urlacher signed jersey and a Brian Urlacher signed helmet to auction off at this event. And that's all I know. So, I mean, and on Tuesday, every Tuesday, it's the players' day off.
Yeah.
There's always a few players that are involved in something, and they're always working with that one faction of the organization to do that. I mean, they're donating their time, but they're, it's like if Marge is still there or whatever. Some of the girls are still there because when I went to practice, I saw them. that were working in that department, but they would contact the players, get the players involved, probably give the players a few weeks notice. Can you be available on this so-and-so Tuesday to do this? It's going to be 3 hours of your time or whatever. But generally speaking, it's always going to be on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great work that the Bears and the NFL have done for years.
Every team does great work with charity.
Yep.
And really hats off. I don't think there is enough, the guy who asked the question's right. There's probably not enough put out about how much good they do. Mm-hmm. I saw yesterday that the Glazer family and the owner of the Falcons, Arthur Blank, both put up a considerable amount of money to the relief effort in North Carolina.
$10 million, I think it was.
Yeah, I knew it was in millions, but between the two of them, put a bunch of money up.
Yeah. God bless them.
Yep.
All right, more questions here. Brandon asked a really good question a while ago. I hope we can get to it here. He says, I've been seeing a lot of talk about split zone versus wide inside zone. Seems like it worked yesterday. What are your thoughts, Greg?
Well, it's hard for me to answer because I got to know what the play concept is.
Okay.
Which I don't. So, and then I also look at how they're blocking it. You got to look at the tight end zone feature, how they're blocking each thing. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, like when you don't get a good gain in the run game, somebody's going unblocked. Mm-hmm. But is there more bodies? So that's what we saw a lot of in the first 3 games and a little bit yesterday. It's always been more bodies coming than you got hats to put on them, mm-hmm. and you're outnumbered. You're just not, you're treading water. So I can't, it's a good question. I just don't have the wherewithal to answer it, at least not right now.
Yeah. Brandon, Greg and I will keep your question in mind, and maybe in the near future, one of the shows we'll do a section on the show.
I'm going to say this though right now. I am not an X and O guy. Never have been and never will be.
Right.
I am a talent evaluator, which is, do I understand the basics? Of course I do.
Sure.
But like if you got Olin in here, Olin is, because, he lived it. But it's like 2 different jobs. My job was always find a guy who can play and why he can play.
Yeah, indeed. Scottish Bear says Darrell Taylor, number 52, needs to be rotated more into the game. He's disruptive every time he's on the field. He's quick, long, and strong. And yesterday, Eberflus pointed out that Travis Smith the defensive line coach, is responsible for rotating players in and out, and that the object is to keep everyone fresh.
Right. And he also mentioned that Taylor didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday. He was sick.
That's right.
And so he had one day, and he's new to this scheme because he played an entirely different scheme before he comes. So he comes in a week before the first game, week and a half before the first game, and he's been learning on the run. But he missed. In fact, Flu said it after. He goes, defensive line coach did a remarkable job getting him up to speed with one day practice, and still he did something. Yes, I agree. He's got to play more, but you can't, especially when you're not totally knowledgeable of what's going on in the scheme. You can't put him into a situation where he's going to make a mistake, because in that defense, a bust assignment usually leads to a big play.
Indeed. All right, I think I got one more here.
We got a lot of time. It's only 12:13.
12:13. Look at you watching the clock.
No, it's in the corner of my laptop here. I just looked down there and saw.
Art says, thanks for your down-to-earth analysis on my Bears. Cheers, Art from Wisconsin.
All right, a cheesehead that likes the Bears. All
how
right.
about that? We love it. OKC Bear is asking about Tyler Scott. No targets through 4 weeks. How do you develop a guy when you're not playing him?
He's got to earn the play time.
Mm-hmm.
Some say, well, he had a great preseason. He had a great last game.
Yeah.
Before that, he had some drops. So I think, and Carter is ahead of him. Carter be number 4 and he's number 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just where he sits on the depth chart. But I'll go back to this. He's got to make plays in practice to earn the play time on Sunday.
Yeah. Coach T is giving you a give him hell message so these ass clowns deserve it.
Coach T is good. I was on his podcast once.
He's awesome.
He got a great podcast.
Yes, he does. Scottish Bear earlier in the show said, Greg is correct. I'm a former professional boxer and coach. The shorter the arm length, the quicker your hands get there. The longer the arms, the longer it takes to get the hands to your opponent. So let me talk about some of the other NFL games with you, Greg. First of all, what's happening in Green Bay? Jordan Love is back. Everyone's expecting a big victory, but the Minnesota Vikings got out to a 28-0 lead. Yes. So I don't know how much you saw, but
very, very little. But I was. What game was on? Oh, the Bears game was on opposite that game, so I'm not going to watch that game. And then Kansas City was on here. I don't have Sunday ticket anymore, so. But I was jokingly just to, raise a little hell with the Cheesehead fans. I was going to say, well, gee, maybe they went with the wrong quarterback. Maybe Willis should still be playing quarterback up there. They were winning with him.
That's right. Love is 0-2.
Our good friend Peter Bukowski would have his ship hit. But
I think that the love for Jordan Love was a bit premature out in Green Bay. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or going to be a terrible quarterback. I just don't think he is an Aaron Rodgers or a Brett Favre.
No,
he's a rich.
He never will be. But he's a guy who can win games.
Absolutely.
No, he's a quality quarterback. Hey, right now Minnesota might be playing the best football in the league. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean they're going to be doing that in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We've seen in this league a lot. You can start off fast and die. You can start slow and come on. It's keeping everything, a sustainable effort, throughout the course of the season. It's not easy to do.
Right.
So, but really, O'Connell has done a tremendous job, especially, Darnold has flopped everywhere he's been. Mm-hmm. Now, in fairness, Darnold was in San Francisco, I believe, last year. So, wasn't the exact system, but he's playing in a sister system that's very, very similar. So, it's not like this is a brand new scheme to him.
Right.
So as O'Connell came from LA with McVay, but, McVay got it from Shanahan to begin with. They're all similar. It's the same scheme they're doing here. But he's doing more than he was able to do with Cousins. Mm-hmm. As good as Cousins is.
Yeah. And
then the defense lost Hunter, and yet the defense is still really doing a great job.
Yep, sure are. And Jordan says, that's the beautiful part, Greg. The Vikings aren't playing fluky. It's all very sustainable ball.
Yeah, they're playing good football. They're playing solid football. Now, is that going to continue? See, I think by the time the Bears play them, the Bears are going to be a lot better football team than they are right now.
Yeah.
Assuming there aren't any more injuries, bad injuries.
Yeah. The offensive line still worries me with the Bears, and that's, of course, such a huge part of a football team. Jordan goes on to say that the Vikings have been missing T.J. Hockenson. They don't have Jordan Addison until yesterday. Ivan Pace Jr. is out. Dallas Turner has missed a game already. So we'll see. I mean, health-wise, they could potentially get better. I'll tell you one thing.
All I know is they jumped out in Green Bay 28-0.
Yes. And I was going to add, Justin Jefferson is going to go down as one of the greatest receivers of all time, up there with the Jerry Rices of the game. He is phenomenal, phenomenal. I'm not a big fantasy football player, but I know that a lot of fantasy football experts were saying that Justin Jefferson is quarterback proof. You can have a Sam Darnold back there, a Kirk Cousins, who was the guy that played for a little while after?
Yeah, I know. I can't think of his name.
Dodds or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the guy is just going to get open. He's going to catch the ball. It's that simple.
Well, how about, some of the best receivers in the game all came from LSU. LSU gets them, and they're all Louisiana kids, too.
What is that about?
I don't know.
Something in the water?
But it is LSU, for some reason, gets great receivers. They're all local kids. You got the guy in Cincinnati is an LSU receiver. Mm-hmm. The Giants got the rookie this year who is tearing it up. And by the way, didn't we say he was wide receiver number 1 going into the draft?
Yes, indeed.
The reason I thought that is because one, he can go up and get it, but number 2 is run after. His ability to separate and his run after were just rare.
Right. Speaking of prospects, a couple of people in the chat room said something about you were not a fan. I don't recall this, but that you were not a fan of Jared Verse and he manhandled Braxton. Do you think you were wrong?
No, I had Jared Verse as 3rd of the.
Yeah, I don't recall you not liking him.
What I thought is I said he's a as compared to like Letu and Turner, he was stiff. His body functions, his body, the flexibility in his body is a little bit stiffer. I'll say that right now. But he is a strong dude now. He's about 270, and he's real. Where the other guys are smaller. They're 255-pound guys, 255-pound guys. But let's see it all play out. He went in the first round. I had him as first rounder. He went in the first round. Yeah. He went right about where I thought he should go.
Yeah. We'll definitely keep an eye on him. J2K is asking, with Andy Dalton playing so well, is Carolina a better team than fans think? Some are saying it's an easy win against the Bears.
I didn't look to see what Andy did yesterday.
The numbers were, I think, 220 yards, couple touchdowns. I'll double check that. But
he hadn't played a defense like the Bears defense yet.
That's the thing. Let me call up his numbers here real quick. It was a 34-24 game. Bengals on top.
And the Bengals suck. That's one of the worst teams in the league this year.
They are bad. 25 out of 40 for Andy, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
So his yards per attempt that sounds like 5 something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm
just doing that quick math in my head, and I'm no mathematical genius, but you throw 40 times, you better get 200 yards. Right? So it's Cincinnati. Don't forget, Daniels threw all over Cincinnati the week before. Cincinnati is not playing good football. My personal opinion, it has a lot to do with money, that even though the guy's not getting the money or on the offensive side of the ball, it's had an effect on its whole team. And, it's something that they're going to have to work out. Otherwise, this season could go down the toilet. Carolina gave him I was just following the score. I didn't watch any of the game, but Carolina was giving him a tough time most of that game. But at the same time, Cincinnati hadn't played worth a damn all year.
Well, good news for the Bears, according to Scottish Bear.
He's been out for a while, I think, hadn't he, Scottish Bear? He's been out like since week 1 or maybe even the preseason.
Yeah, indeed.
And they traded Burns, their best pass rusher, to the Giants.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and no, I'm not. The game's here too, which I think is important. I think that it's going to be a win. Then you got to go across the pond and play Jacksonville in London. And I think that's going to end up being a very pro-Bear crowd over there.
All right, I got a controversial question here. I know it's going to make you mad, but I got to post it.
No, I said there's no bitching this week.
I don't know if you've answered this already, Greg, but if you were the GM, would you fire Chris Morgan?
No. First of all, I don't know. Well, you're never going to fire, or not never. I mean, it's happened. Fire a guy in the middle of the season. But if you're going to fire a guy, you better have, before you fire him, you better have a replacement.
Right.
Okay. And if you fire Chris Morgan, who they're playing a wide zone, outside zone running attack, and you bring in a guy that doesn't favor that, how are you going to do that? That's going to screw up your whole offensive scheme. You got to do it during the off season, not during the season. So, no, I'll say this. I thought the offensive line in the second half was really good.
I mean, yeah, why would you want to fire somebody if they're showing some improvement, even if it is just one game?
Yeah, no. See, I didn't get mad.
Congratulations. Yay.
It's no bitch Monday.
I love it. I love it. The other thing that I'd love to add my 2 cents to that is, I'm not super pleased, of course. I'm not at all pleased with how the offensive line has played this season, but you retained this guy. You married him to Shane Waldron. There's going to be some bumps along the way. You can't fire him after 4 games, particularly after a strong second quarter by the offensive line and that was injured. So you got to let this play out some. You can't willy-nilly just – we fans immediately want to fire someone after they've had –
That's what it is here.
Yeah.
You don't like the way something goes, fire him. I hate it.
Yeah, it's wrong.
What do you do for a living? I'd love to see what they do so we can criticize what they do.
Jeez, I know I would have been fired a long time ago. How bad I am here tomorrow.
That's right. I mean, I have trouble with the English language. I wouldn't, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be able to do this damn job.
Yeah, you got it. In my line of work, when I worked in corporate America, the approach was you identify the problems with the employee who's not performing well, and you tell them, all right, these are the results I want to see. And if they don't get there after a prescribed period of time, then you fire him. You don't after 4 weeks say, all right, you're fired. Bring somebody else in.
You can't fire the most important coach on the offensive side of the ball, position coach on the offside of the ball in the middle of the season, unless you got somebody who has, almost the exact same philosophy to bring. It just doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. I mean, I get.
But I got to say, there's one thing I got to say, because it brought up something. I did a show with Swifty on Saturday. My wife had a list of honeydews I had to do on Friday, like a mile long, when she was off. So we pushed the show back to Saturday, and Swifty had seen this somewhere. I didn't see it, where Ryan Poles was asked about the line, and he said, the talent is there. Mm-hmm. And basically was a shot at really all the offensive coaches. Make it freaking work.
Yeah, all right. I like it. Make it freaking work. That should be a t-shirt. Let's see. I got I had something here that I wanted you to respond to, and now I lost it. Pepe says Chris Morgan has been on the team for more than 4 weeks. He's been here for 3 years, and the O-line has been bad. Not saying he should be fired now, but it should be considered after the season. So do you think that the offensive line has been bad for his 3 years here?
I think the offensive line has been in total flux his entire time here. They haven't any talent. And he's not responsible for the players they have. He's responsible to coach the players they have.
Right.
Okay. So part of that's on Ryan Poles in the front office.
Great point.
And he said he's been here 4 years. He hadn't been here 4 years. This is his third year here, I think, isn't it?
I think he came in with Eberflus, didn't he?
So this is third year.
Correct.
Because Nagy had Juan Castillo as last year as the offensive line coach. But you could, they stripped down a lot of this team in that first year. And then the second year, okay, you went out, you spent some money on Nate Davis, but that hasn't panned out. Okay. Ryan has made a couple bad moves. The first guy to admit that he's made a bad move is Ryan.
Yes.
That's one thing I like about him a lot is he owns up to his mistakes. He made a mistake with Chase Claypool. He's also hit a few home runs too. One we mentioned earlier, Darryl Taylor.
Yes, indeed.
It ends up being a steal for a 6th-round pick. So that happens in the personnel business, and the injuries don't help it. Like, Shelton's not supposed to be the starter. Ryan Bates is. And Ryan Bates is a pretty stout guy, and Shelton's a lot smaller than Ryan Bates is. But Ryan hadn't been able to play. And really, when Ryan is able to play, he might be put at right guard because Davis can't play.
Right. He played a little better yesterday in the second half, so we'll see if Nate Davis is finally...
he's got to. He might get shot right on the field.
That's right. They better help those detectors.
But there's a couple of plays they showed, they showed the end zone view in the replay, and he got whooped.
Yeah. He just doesn't seem into it.
No, it tells me there's something with football character that's missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the desire, the want. There's no doubt about it.
I don't know the guy, so I don't know enough about it. I saw his tape in Tennessee. There was nothing wrong with his tape in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it looked like a good acquisition.
MC Fact wants to change his question here. He says, would you have fired Chris before the season? There were a number of changes with the offensive coaching staff, including Luke Getsy being removed. Would that be a fair consideration, letting Shane Waldron bring in his own offensive line coach?
It's a fair question, but I think you had a head coach that wanted to retain him, and you had a general manager that wanted to retain him, because both of those people think he's a good coach. Mm-hmm. And it's very easy for people on the outside to take a shot at a coach and not know what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
Should fire this guy. In fact, it's funny because I get out of I read this message board. It's Notre Dame football thing. So Notre Dame's had a lot of injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So all these know-it-alls, right? They want to fire the strength coach because the injuries are the strength coach problem. We wouldn't have they got to change and then they're bringing up these articles, that show, well, if you strengthen this muscle, it's good for the ACL and all that. And I'm just thinking, this is all stuff for normal people, not elite football players that are, in a whole different stratosphere from what that article was talking about. Mm-hmm. And, spending as much time, first lifting as much as I do, and then spending as much time in the league as I have, really what they do in the weight program is not a good correlation on the injuries, unless they're doing everything totally wrong. Nutrition now if they get a lot of soft tissue injuries, and that means something could be wrong with the program. And the same with nutrition. You pull muscles, a lot of times it's what goes in your mouth. You're not taking care of your diet. You're not hydrating enough.
Yeah.
Full muscle. So, but people, they want to take shots because they think they have an answer. And if there's a problem, well, we got to find something, so we got to fire them. But they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So we're going to fire the strength coach. Okay. That sounds fair. Come on.
Here, I think this is a good question here from Zach, the way he phrases it. To what extent is player development on coaching? So, for instance, the offensive line, and I'll add to that. So you take a look at a player like Braxton Jones. He's now been coached this is the third season. Braxton Jones
has the same coach for 3 years.
Yes. So should we expect Braxton Jones to be improved at this point? Or is it, hey, guy may have reached his ceiling, and so you can't blame that on the offensive line coach? What are your opinions?
Yeah, it's a good question. I am a little disappointed in his play this year to date. There's some flashes, but what happens when you get breakdowns in the offensive line, and you're looking and as soon as one guy has a breakdown, then you get out the machine gun and you're ready to blow holes in the guy. And he's had some break, but they all have. But it's his fourth year or third year, so it's his third year in the league. So you want there to be less breakdowns. He's had 2 off seasons in an NFL strength program. So, because we talked about that previously, where he came from Southern Utah, they didn't have the program to develop him physically the way if he had gone to a Pac-12 school or a Big Ten school or something like that. So he was behind the curve when he got here. He just had the elite traits. But now by year 3, he should have totally caught up. So yeah, you could that could be on him. Could be mental or could be physical. If it's mental, it's totally on him. And if it's physical, some of it's on him too, because he not doing what he's supposed to do. I'm not talking specifically about Braxton Jones. I'm talking about any player. Right. But it's up to the coach to get the player to play to his optimum level.
Yeah. It's a fascinating part of coaching. How do you measure success for a position coach? Can you say, well, the guys are playing better, so that's on the position coach. But if they're not playing better, is that on the position coach, or is that on the personnel that is incapable of playing better despite good coaching?
Could be a combination of the two.
And that as well. It's
okay, but we can go back, a lot of bitching last week ago now, play calling and everything else long. Now, did the offense, except for the penalties, perform at a higher level and a more efficient level this week than they did last week?
They sure did.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, and that's really a testament to both the coaching staff and the players, because the players got to do it too. The players are playing the game, so they got to do, and they're elite. They wouldn't be in the National Football League if they weren't elite. Okay, right. So you got to put it on both. But if you got to, I'll say it this way: if Ryan Poles being an offensive lineman Ian being an offensive lineman and Flus being the head coach, if they didn't think the guy was a good coach, he wouldn't have been let go. There's only 2 offensive coaches retained, the tight end coach and him. All the others were let go.
Yeah, indeed. Good analysis there. Greg, what do you got going on over at Windy City Gridiron? Have you published something recently that you want to plug?
Well, I did a preview, and I said they'd win by 10, so I guess I was off. But what I came up with an idea, and I don't know if I only write twice a week, but I don't know if I'm going to do it early in the week or later in the week. Is I was watching the Alabama game Saturday night.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
And I couldn't believe the way they jumped on Georgia right from the start.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. And Kalen DeBoer has to be in the toughest situation in America. When you replace a legend, that's like an impossible task.
Yeah.
Sure yet he's doing it, which speaks a lot. And then I started looking up because I wanted to see his background. So it turns out he's from this small town in South Dakota, northeast South Dakota, not far from where my in-laws are from. And my wife is from Sioux Falls. South
I didn't know that.
Okay. Yeah. So, her family was all originally from South Dakota. This guy went to Sioux Falls College. So he got a coach at Alabama that played college football, a little tiny, like me, playing at Canisius. And, he's coaching one of the premier programs, and not the premier program in college football of all time. I mean, that in itself is an incredible story.
Absolutely. That'd be a great story.
But anyway, to go back to what I started thinking about, because there's only a couple places of the Power 4 schools that I haven't been to a game at in my whole career. And it's SMU and Texas Tech. And I've been to both schools. I haven't been to a game.
Okay.
And so I started thinking, okay, best venues. And maybe do a top 10 of my best venues.
I love that. That's great.
Even though it has nothing to do with NFL, it's football. And in fact, one of the Willis brothers sent me a tweet because you got to have Notre Dame. And I said, I've been there more than anything, and I don't know if it's going to be borderline. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, because except throughout the student body, you go in there and you walk around at the tailgates and they're fun. Everybody's my age.
Last time I was there about 3 years ago. I have to agree with you. Yeah, there are a lot of young people. That's true.
I'm surprised there's not more heart attacks in the stands during the game. There's a lot of old people in that thing.
Oh, my goodness.
But it is. It is an iconic venue.
Oh yes.
So and they have enlarged the stadium. When I first started going to games there in 1984, it was a 60,000 seat stadium. Now it's an 80,000 seat stadium, and it looks the same. And so they've done a really good job in keeping the aesthetics to mix in with everything else in the every other building on campus, which is nice, and just touchdown Jesus and all that. So the venue itself might be number one, but what I was really referring to is game day atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, it's tough to beat some of those Southeast Conference places.
Yeah. I have that on my bucket list. I'd love to go to LSU and watch a game in Alabama. So,
well, I told you that my favorite story of coaching was at LSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the cop?
Share that again. Yeah.
Okay. So it's in like 92, sometime around in there. Because I was in my first marriage. And at that time, LSU did not put scouts in the press box. They had a small press box. Now they did the initial expanding of the stadium right around 2005, 2006. And when Katrina hit, we played the Saints at LSU because the dome in New Orleans was the Superdome, it was called then, was damaged. And so they had to play their whole game, all their games at LSU. And at that point, that's when they were, they finally were putting scouts in the press box because they had enlarged a lot of and it's even been enlarged since then. But anyway, so I had to sit, they give you a ticket in the stand. So I'm in the corner end zone. Now, LSU was not good in the early 90s. So you didn't have a sellout crowd like you have now. And so they were playing Kentucky on a Saturday night game. And I'm going to say the place was 70% full. The sidelines were full. The end zones were a little light. And I wasn't, I was in a corner end zone seat and not like anybody was sitting next to me. So I'm doing my work and I'm writing some stuff down and I'm talking into a little, tape recorder. See what I see? And all of a sudden there's a tap on my shoulder. Now, I got to use the right language here. So this is an adult comment here. So I turn and there's a big cop and he goes, "Boy, you some sort of motherfucking spy or something?" So I said, "No, I'm a scout." "Oh, mind if I sit next to you?" "I don't care." Of course, I didn't take a note the rest of the game.
Oh, I bet he was talking your ear off. I bet
he was talking, and he's at the time, his name was I remember his name was Winston Ashe. So he had a Cajun name, Lieutenant Winston Ashe, and he was telling me all about how like the drug runners go up and down I-10 and I-10 goes right through Baton Rouge, and all the drug busts they make on people coming from the Mexican border through Texas into Louisiana, going to Florida and vice versa. So he said it's crazy, and then tell me a bunch of other stuff. So game gets over. He says, "Where are you parked?" I said, "Not close by." I said, "I'm a good mile and a half, maybe 2 miles away. The park is not good." He goes, "Come with me." So I follow him. His cop car is right outside the gate of the stadium in that corner of the end zone. He says, "Get in my car." Get in his car, drives me to my car. Then he turned on the lights of his car and he says, "Follow." He asked me where I was staying. I told him that it's a Marriott now, but then it was a Hilton right in downtown Baton Rouge. He gives me an escort right back to the hotel. So I was like there. I got to my car and to the hotel in like 15 minutes.
That's wild. How cool.
Then he gives me his card and he says, "Now, son," he says, "you get in any trouble around here," he says, "you just my home phone number is on here. You call there and I'll take care of it for you."
Winston Lachey.
Ashe. ACH. So then a couple days later, I'm at another Louisiana school. I'm with Hokie Gaijan. Hokie Gaijan played at LSU, played fullback for the Saints, scouted for the Saints for a few years, and then became the radio analyst. Okay, like Thayer is. But when Hokie was a really good guy. And so I'm telling him the story and I show him the card. And Hokie goes, "Give me that card. I'm going to need it before you are." And Hokie died like 2 years ago.
Oh, no.
Just a super, super guy. But now I just got to fast forward. There's another part. 2006, when we played there, I think it was 2006, when we played there because of Katrina. It might have been 2005, whatever the year. So the night before, LSU was playing Appalachian State. So we go to that game, and Tony Medlin, the Bears equipment guy,
Sure.
was real close with the equipment guy from Appalachian State, some connection they had going way, way back. So Tony gets me a field pass that I never could have got from the school. So I'm watching the game from on the field, behind the LSU bench, behind the Appy State bench, the whole game. But I see there's a bunch of cops in the end zone. So I go over, they're all Baton Rouge cops. And I tell them the story. And I said, is Winston O'Shea still here? And they said, he retired like 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
And he had rose to become the commandant of the Baton Rouge Police Department.
Wow. That's a great story. So I love that story. You could say that a couple more times before we pull the plug on this great show.
Almost 2 hours today.
Almost 2 hours. Can I ask you one more question? It actually comes from
Sure.
Jordan Silvera. It says, Greg, at what point would you consider letting underclassmen enter the NFL? Guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith are making that barrier look awfully murky.
It's not going to happen. Part of it is you can mention two names like that, okay? You could go back to Herschel Walker or somebody like that. And the guy who tried to test it was Maurice Claret, and that was Lovey's first year. And he tried to test that rule, and he lost it in court.
Ohio State player Maurice
Claret. And when he lost in court, they never getting changed again. And it's because, and the rule states it's not 3 years in college, it's 3 years out of high school. Okay. So you've got to have 3 years since your last year of high school. So, if you didn't play as a freshman at a JC because you couldn't, qualify or something, and then you went to a school for 2 years, you can enter the draft. It's 3 years from the time you leave high school. But a lot of it has to do with just the physicality. Are they physically and mentally prepared to play the game? Very, very few are. And you can come up with a Herschel Walker and a guy here and a guy there that can do it. But don't forget they're little boys trying to play a men's game, and these men are making their living doing that.
Yep.
Okay, and you try to take their job, they're going to kill your ass. So it's. I agree with it. It's not like the NBA. The NBA's got 5 people on the floor, and not 20. 5 on a team, and so 10 people on the floor versus 22 is not anywhere near as physical. And the NBA makes you wait 1 year now.
Yeah, right. And Jeremy points out the NIL money. Why?
Yeah. That I'll tell you that. Look what NIL did to last year's draft. The number of underclassmen shrunk by 50%. And it's going to be the same. I did a player today, a tackle. I'm not going to say the school or the player, but it's his first year as a starter. He's a third-year guy. Back up as a freshman, played in every game. One start as a sophomore. Started every game this year. Playing really good. And you can see why this guy got a big ceiling. He's going to be a good football player. And probably might not be a first-round pick, but he's easily a day 2 pick. By the end of the year, he could be, because he's still, he's got 5 starts for this year and 1 last year that was under his belt. The rest of that has been a backup. And offensive linemen, they don't play much except for special teams and stuff. So, but I wrote in the report for the agent, I said the NIL money, well, he's big guy, physically he's ready to play. The NIL money might keep him in another year. Depending on how much he's getting, because now you don't have to take that money. Some of those guys are making really good money.
Yeah, indeed.
Now, it's not everybody, and it's not at every school, but at the school he's at, I would think their collective is going to take care of people.
And one of the things that's interesting about NIL money, I heard it was actually Caitlin Clark, the WNBA player, said, you're making this money in college, but it doesn't necessarily go away when you turn pro, because you're getting, those are endorsement dollars,
right?
And those endorsements are going to continue when you turn professional. So that's why
it depends on how it's set up through the school,
right?
So, and what the schools are doing now is they're setting up these collectives, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And all you got to do theoretically for the collective is show up somewhere to sign autographs or something like that, and you're going to get your money. But yeah, then you can get a situation like she had, and I'll just make up it. Let's say she had an endorsement with Nike or Adidas or something like that. Yeah, that one's not going away.
Right.
As long as she's still a productive player, she's going to keep that, and it's probably going to go up even higher.
Indeed. Good way to stop this show. It is called Gabriel Talks Football with Greg Gabriel. Outstanding stuff, Greg. And I can't wait for next week's show where we'll be talking about the Bears having won 2 straight games. Let's get a winning streak going. And it could go on for weeks, too, because you got the Jaguars after that. You got a bye after that.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jaguars are probably praying to get over to England to play so they don't have to listen to their fans, because they are hollering for Doug Peterson's head down there.
Yeah. And by the time we play the Commanders week 8, that offense for the Commanders could look totally different than the offense we've been seeing, because there's going to be a lot of changes to how defenses attack that offense.
They played Cleveland, which has got a decent defense.
Yeah.
This week, I don't know who they play after that. I haven't looked, but I know they played Cleveland this week. Cleveland's offense sucks, but their defense is I think pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting how Daniels does against that scheme.
And the Cardinals then on the road, they're an up and down team, but it's going to be fun.
More down than up.
Yeah, more down than up, but it's going to be fun to watch Marvin Harrison Jr. play. All right, that is our episode for today. Let people know about GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. Click the like button, share the program on your social media accounts, and we will see you here next week. Goodbye, Greg.
See you later.